this video, we're going to talk about async.series and async.waterfall. It's a bit different than async parallel in that it helps you control the flow of your functions. So let's get started. In this tutorial, we're going to need to use GitHub's API as an asynchronous example. So let's start by installing the GitHub module. Now we have the GitHub module. Let's start coding. So we need to first bring in the async library. And then we need to bring in the GitHub API library. Now we have GitHub required. We need to instantiate it. And we'll pass in a version number. Now let's talk about async.waterfall. The way async.waterfall works is it takes an array as a first parameter and a callback function as the second one. It's a bit different in that each function inside the array will need to take the result of the previous function as a parameter. So let me demonstrate this. All you have to do is call async.waterfall. It takes an array as the first parameter and a callback function with the error object as the first parameter and the result as the second. Now we need to put some functions into this array. Let's call the first function getUserAvatar. It takes a callback, and then we will create a second function called wrapAvatar in HTML. The first parameter of this function will need to be the return value of the first function. So if we do everything correctly, the first function should return the URL to the avatar of the GitHub repository. So let's call this avatar URL and then a callback. Now let's fill in our function. Let's use the GitHub API to get the avatar of the repository of Airbnb. So it takes a parameter called q and then the name of the repository. And then it takes a callback. So if there's an error, we simply call the callback from our outer function with the error object and null because we couldn't return anything. So it's really important we call this return here so we don't double calling the callback afterwards. So in the case where we correctly got the avatar back, let's set a variable for it. Be the first item, avatar URL. And now here we simply return the avatar. We return null as the error and then the avatar URL. So what this is saying is this value will now be passed as the first parameter of the second function in the array. So here we can do var avatar with HTML equals, let's put this in an image tag. Then we simply return that value with a callback. And then finally, this function will be called once all the functions in the stack has been executed. And if there's an error, we log the error. We'll handle it if you are running this in production. And then we return here. Otherwise, we simply log the results. So if we do everything correctly, this should output what we want. Seems like there's a syntax error. So let's go back to the code. This needs to be new. So this will call the two functions in the stack. The first function will get the URL from GitHub, and then the second function will append this URL to the image tag, and as a result you get this. This is what we want. So it's really handy when you want to do multiple things in order, and then when a function inside the stack depends on the result from the previous function. Now the other async function, which is pretty similar to waterfall, is async.series. It works very similar to how async.waterfall works, except that it will run the functions inside the array in order. So it takes an error object here and a result. So let's say we have 3 functions. We want them to be run in the order that we need them to be run in. So let's say we have function 1 takes a callback. Then we can do callback, no error, results of function 1. So let's copy this 2 more times. And we'll call this one function 2. And then this one function 3. And let's log the results. As you can see, it runs these 3 functions in order, 1, 2, and 3. So this is really handy if you, my battery is running out. This is really handy if you want to run certain functions in order, and then you can catch the error here, like the other function, like waterfall. Is that if any of these things errored out, it will simply stop the execution at wherever the error occurs, and then let you know the error on the final function.